Hello and welcome to our special presentation from inside the Parliament House complex. In Question Hour, we'll be bringing you those questions which were put up in the Parliament in written form and answered in written form by the government. So we will go through questions from the Ministries of Finance, Home and some others as well. And joining me is my colleague Kriti Mishra.
Thank you, Vishal. So let's take our viewers through all the important unstarred questions asked by the members and the answers given by the government.
Well, yes, Kriti, and let's begin with one of the questions which has been put forth by Rajya Sabha MP Harivansh, who goes on to ask the government whether it is a fact that banks are financially in weak position owing to NPA accounts, that's non-performing assets.
So the government has given a very comprehensive reply, and MOS Finance has given the reply, and he says that banks are positioned strongly in terms of their deposit base, diversified credit growth, healthy and improving net interest margin and substantial capital base. As per RBI data, as on July 20, 2018, scheduled commercial banks had aggregate deposits of 114.38 lakh crore, which was 32.8% more than their aggregate credit, reflecting customer confidence and strong fund base. This is being deployed for diversified credit growth of 12.4% year-on-year as on 20th of July 2018, which will help further improve net interest margin from the existing healthy level of 2.7% as of March 2018. So that's a bit of a breather, Vishal.
Yes, it is.
Moving on to the next question, Rajiv Chandrasekhar has asked the amount and percentage of gross non-performing assets in banks due to delayed or stalled infrastructure projects and the steps taken by the government to expedite the delayed projects.
Well, somewhat related to the previous question itself, and the government goes on to answer this by saying that as per the provisional data available with Reserve Bank of India at the end of financial year 2017-18, amount and percentage of gross non-performing assets in banks in industry infrastructure sector was 2,743 crore and 18.89% respectively. Now, the government has taken various steps to establish delayed projects. Now, these include setting up a projects monitoring group for fast-tracking approvals for projects, sector-specific interministerial groups for addressing systemic issues affecting viability and repayment capacity of projects, one-time fund infusion, that is OTFI, for completion of delayed and languishing road projects, release of 75% of arbitral award amount against bank guarantees for revival of construction sector, etc. In addition, enactment of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, that is IBC Act, has created unified framework that has enabled transparent and time-bound resolution of high-value stressed assets, including delayed and stalled projects. So quite a number of steps which have been taken by the government here. So the next one, Kriti, is again to the Ministry of Finance, and this one is from two members, Vishambar Prasad Nishad and Chaudhry Sukhram Singh Yadav. Both the members asked the government whether it is a fact that contrary to the Reserve Bank's guidelines, the chit fund companies or promoters are offering more dividends to the people on their investment through different tempting schemes like deposit schemes and Ponzi schemes.
So the government has given a very precise answer, and the government says while chit fund companies registered with respective state governments under the Chit Funds Act 1982 may collect subscriptions to chits, they are prohibited by the Reserve Bank of India from accepting deposits from the public since the year 2009. Further acceptance of money through money circulation, pyramid structured schemes is banned under the Price Chits and Money Circulation Schemes Banning Act 1978 and is also a cognizable offence. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has during the last 5 years and current year assigned 32 cases involving 223 companies allegedly engaged in chit fund or Ponzi activities to the Serious Fraud Investigation Office for investigation. So that's a stern step by the government, Vishal. Moving on now to the Ministry of Health, Binoy Vishwam has asked whether it is a fact that there is a gradual revival in the number of clinical trials being done in India since it was at all-time low of 17 clinical trials approved by Drug Controller General of India.
So, well, the government's answer to this member's question, that is Binoy Vishwam's question, is being given by Ashwini Kumar Chaube, the MOS there, and he says gradual increase in number of clinical trial permissions may be due to various measures taken to strengthen and streamline the regulation of clinical trials in more predictable and transparent manner. Now, streamlining and strengthening regulatory provisions is a continuous process, and this is done keeping in view the interest of all stakeholders. Various measures taken by government for strengthening the regulatory provision in respect of clinical trials include amendments in the Drugs and Cosmetics Rules 1945, laying down the procedures to analyze the reports of serious adverse events and payments of compensation in case of trial-related injury or death, conditions for conduct of clinical trials, authority for conducting clinical trial inspections, and actions in case of non-compliance. Also, the requirements and guidelines for registration of ethics committee. So there are stringent norms here as well, and this is what the government has put forth on the table. Another one, Kriti, the next one is from Vandana Chavan, who goes on to ask the government whether government has an action plan to increase public health expenditure up to 2.5% till 2025.
So MOS Health Anupriya Patel has given this answer, and she says that government has increased the total public health expenditure from 1.49 lakh crore rupees in 2014-15 to 2.25 lakh crore rupees in 2017-18 according to the Economic Survey 2017-18. Further, the National Health Policy 2017 envisages raising government health spending to 2.5% of GDP by the year 2025 in a time-bound manner. It also envisages increasing state sector health spending to more than 8% of their budget by the year 2020. So that's a substantial increase, Vishal.
Yes, indeed it is, and quite a detailed layout as well as to how this will progress further.
So the next question has been asked by Mr. H. Lachungpa, and he asks whether any steps are being taken by the government to ensure better availability of high-quality doctors in rural and remote areas of the country.
Well, this has been a burning question, Kriti, and there is a detailed answer from the government on this. The concerned minister goes on to answer that in order to encourage doctors to work in remote and difficult areas, the Medical Council of India, with the previous approval of central government, has amended the Postgraduate Medical Education Regulations 2000 to provide 50% reservation in postgraduate diploma courses for medical officers in the government service who have served for at least 3 years in remote and difficult areas, and incentives at the rate of 10% the marks obtained for each year in service in remote or difficult areas, as up to maximum of 30% of the marks obtained in the entrance test for admission in postgraduate medical courses. Further, the government has taken various steps to train more health professionals and depute them in rural areas. Now, these include multi-skilling of doctors, that is, MBBS doctors are trained in emergency obstetric care, life-saving anesthesia skills, and laparoscopic surgery is being supported under NHM. Support to state and union territories in term of hard area allowance for specialist doctors who serve in rural and remote areas, as well as for residential quarters for them. Also, the states are encouraged to adopt flexible norms for engaging specialists or even contractual basis at public health facilities. Now, these include various mechanisms for contracting in and contracting out of specialist services, methods of engaging specialists outside the government system for service delivery at public function facilities, or rather the mechanism to include requests for these in the state program implementation plan, that is PIP, under the National Health Mission. So there are several avenues available, Kriti, as far as this particular scheme is concerned, and there are ways in which state governments and union territories can go in and take the benefit there.
That's absolutely crucial for expanding the medical infrastructure in the country, specifically in the remote areas, Vishal. Moving on to the Ministry of Power now. K.R. Arjunan has asked whether it is a fact that power output rises amid tiff over coal stock. That's an interesting question.
Well, indeed, and this relates to the power sector, so all eyes on that answer as well. The minister concerned, R.K. Singh, goes on to answer this question by saying that during the current year, 2018-19, that is up to June 2018, the growth in supply of coal from Coal India Limited, CIL, was around 15%. Now, this has helped in increasing the power output from coal-based power plants. During the first quarter of the current year, 2018-19, the growth in thermal generation was 5.69%, and the growth in thermal generation from National Thermal Power Corporation, that is NTPC power plants, was 7.76%. Next one, Akriti, is from the Rajya Sabha member, Ronald Sapa, and he goes on to ask the question whether it is a fact that government has made it mandatory for all PSUs and contractors to regularly pay a certain percentage of their budget for corporate social responsibility dues.
Well, Vishal, all eyes have been on CSR spending for quite some time now, and the government says that every company having net worth of 500 crore rupees or more, or turnover of 1,000 crore rupees or more, or net profit of 5 crore rupees or more during the immediately preceding financial year shall be liable to spend at least 2% of the average net profits of the company made during the 3 immediately preceding financial years on corporate social responsibility activities in areas or subjects specified in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act 2013. Every such company will have a CSR committee which will formulate and recommend to the board a CSR policy which shall indicate the activities to be undertaken by the company, recommend the amount of expenditure to be incurred on such activities, and monitor the CSR policy from time to time. So these were the important questions and the answers given by the government. That's all Vishal and I had for you in this edition of Question Hour. Prashn Kal with our colleagues Arvind Singh and Akhilesh Suman on the other side. Stay tuned.